All right, again, we're doing a gradated value scale. It should show a dark to light, a nice blend here. And again, just like you did before, I recommend, it's even more important that you go the same direction. So I'm going to start out with, and you can kind of use the top value scale to help you here too. One distinction is that the values are going to blend together, and then also you will not have a line between them. You shouldn't really be able to see where one stops and one starts. So I'm going to kind of fill in the first, inch or so with my really dark, like I did on the top. So you're kind of following what you did on the top, but now you are, again, trying to seamlessly blend them without an abrupt start and stop. And that's where this gets a little trickier, right? So now I'm going to begin transitioning into my medium to dark tone. And here I'm going to just start ever so slightly softening how much I'm pushing down with my pencil. And again, I'm making these like kind of small circular marks as I do this so that I can maintain control. Again, maybe you have a different technique that you think is working for you. I'm just suggesting what works for me and may be useful to you. So again, I'm going ever so slightly lighter with my pencil. And I can go back over the spot where they're kind of transitioning. I'm using the side of my pencil too. Some of you I noticed had a lot of lininess, and I think it's because you're kind of going down with your pencil. Again, I'm a lefty, so I don't know how that looks for a righty, but try to use the side of your pencil. A nice sharp pencil on its side, you're using like a larger swath of lead. If you're going straight down, you're just using the pencil tip. So you can imagine that would be harder to blend. So I think that might be contributing to some of your lininess if you're going straight down. So again, notice that my pencil is at an angle. And like I said, you can use the top to guide you. And if I do that value and I'm like, that's not quite fully blended, I can go back into the area where there's the transition and try to kind of go over it a little bit more. Again, keeping my direction the same is super important here. If you go multiple directions, it's not going to look cohesive. Gradating your values could be useful if you're trying to make something look rounded or if it has shadows. How do you go from a shadow to a light area while making it look smooth? So if you haven't been using your pencil on its side, I would urge you to try that out for this next one to make it it will make it easier for you if you use the pencil on the side. Might take a little figuring out to determine what's comfortable for you. And if I need to go back over things, just make sure I'm using the same direction here. All right, so on the bottom of your page, after you have finished your entire, you have finished your value scale and your gradation, I want you to try out 3 textures from this paper. And the reason I'm going to have you try 3 textures is because, like I said, on your artwork, you might have some areas of high detail, and you're not going to want to draw every single tiny little detail. I mean, you could, but it'd be a gargantuan task. So I'm going to have you guys try out some of these textures. I would like you to choose 3. I'm going to talk about some of these and how to go about them. And all I want you to do is create a little patch of the texture. So you don't need to make any measurements. So like the hatching, you can kind of make a patch like you see here. Hatching is basically just small little marks. It can be 2 or 3 marks kind of randomly placed. They should be kind of similar in size. They don't typically overlap, but they can a little bit sometimes. Okay. Hatching can be great to create the look of fur, to create grass, bark. So you could try some hatching if you wanted to. Scumbling is kind of a controlled scribble. So some of you have like, again, a forest floor, or somebody has some like, someone back there has some leaves, and we were talking about, boy, that's a lot of information to try to draw. What would be a good texture? Scumbling or gesturing are both kind of like a rough, almost like a scribble texture. Scumbling is kind of like a controlled scribble going multiple directions, but using the same line quality, if that makes sense. So it's not too big or too small. So it's kind of going multiple directions to create. So I'm doing these kind of just like little, so that's a scumble. A gesture is more like this, where it's going the same direction. I call these like if you have curly hair, like, I mean, my hair is kind of wavy, but it's like a curly cue. So it's just these little kind of like curly shapes that are next to each other. And when jumbled together, these can be great to create the look of like foliage on a tree, or again, a rough patchy area of texture on a page. So this is called gesturing. And those are going, again, the same direction. I'm going to show you 2 more, or maybe 3 more. Again, you can choose the ones that you want to use. Cross hatching is, instead of just hatching, this time it's almost like little tic-tac-toe boards. This is also great if you wanted to create the look of bark. You wanted to imply that an area is rough versus smooth. So all I'm doing is making these little tic-tac-toe boards, but they're kind of overlapping each other. They're pretty similar in size. So I'm making like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's called cross hatching. And then I've got 2 more that I'm going to show you. Feathering. So another person in this class was making palm trees. And we talked about how feathering could be. So this is feathering right here, where you're making these kind of like long marks. They can be going the opposite direction. So if I wanted to make the look of like a palm, for instance, that feathering mark could be useful. But it could also be used going the same direction to create the look of grass. Again, foliage. Hello. So that is called feathering. The very last one I'm going to show you, folks, is called stippling. This one's fun, but it's also exhausting. So stippling is right here, and as you can see, it's just little dots, which can be beautiful to create the look of, again, a soft texture, such as clouds or sand. So stippling is literally just taking your pencil and kind of hitting the paper with it, either softly or more hard. And again, it gives you just this soft kind of texture. It has sort of a delicate look to it, but it is very labor intensive. So if you have an area of texture that you're not sure how to describe, stippling is always a good one to go with. It's pretty easy to control. So you're just kind of hitting the paper. So if you didn't get to the textures today, that's okay. You can try out 3 of them tomorrow. I will make this video available on the Google Classroom if you want to review any of these.